Hi, it's Andy here at Photech Video, and in today's video I'm going to tell you all about this tiny metal and glass lens. It's the Fujian GDS 35mm F1.7 TV lens, and it cost me just €16.55, which is less than $18 on AliExpress. Yes, $18, $18. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you some examples of photos and videos taken on my ZV E10 Sony APS-C camera using this Fujian 35mm F1.7 TV lens. And you'll be able to see the beautiful dreamlike bouquet which it produces. So, as I said in the intro, this tiny little lens cost the equivalent of just $18, which is simply ridiculously cheap. But cheap does not always mean bad. This video has three parts. This introduction, a more detailed look at the lens including its pros and cons, and a few test examples of photos and videos shot wide open at f1.7. But first, I have a question for you. Which is more frightening for you? Using full manual mode instead of automatic, aperture priority and shutter speed priority, or using manual focus instead of autofocus? Over the years, I had become more and more phobic towards using manual focus. And quite honestly, I don't know why. Because my passion for photography began over 40 years ago when there was no autofocus. Everything was manual focus. We seem to have been brainwashed into believing that we need to have autofocus constantly activated on our cameras and that we need to have the most sophisticated autofocus on the market today. Maybe that is true for professional photographers who need to deliver tack-sharp images to their clients on a regular basis and therefore cannot afford to make any mistakes. Manual focus allows you to be the creative. Do you want to be able to show people your images and say, hey, I created that, and feel good about it, instead of having that imposter syndrome when you know deep down inside that it really wasn't your criteria, but the autofocus and the auto modes on your camera's criteria? On this channel, I want to help you lose the fear of the word manual and learn how to create your images following your own criteria without the assistance of the automatic modes on your camera and the automatic focus in your lenses. Or at least learn how to create images without too much help from your camera and lenses. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to shoot using manual focus and also in manual exposure mode. If this is the kind of content that you like, then please consider subscribing to my channel. Most autofocus lenses will allow you to shoot using manual focus mode. But if you buy an automatic focus lens only to use it in manual focus mode, then you are spending unnecessarily. However, you may already have an autofocus lens, which you can switch to manual focus mode. If that autofocus lens is a prime lens with a wide aperture, then you will be able to create some interesting images using manual focus on it. If it's a kit lens, then it won't have such a wide aperture, but you'll still get some interesting results and lots of practice using the manual focus on your lens. I came across the Fujian GDS 35mm F1.7 on AliExpress. And when I saw the price, I didn't hesitate in ordering it to pair it with my Sony ZV E10. Any cameras with a larger sensor than these using this lens will result in a lot of vignetting in your photos and video. If you are a beginner in photography and want to take creative photos and you're not a pixel peeper, this could be the lens to start you on the road to learning manual photography. If you're not a beginner, this could be the lens which gives you back some of the passion which you may have lost for photography. Now, this is not a sharp lens. In fact, it's quite soft, especially when wide open. If you focus on the center of the frame, only the center will be in focus. On the same focal plane to the left, the right, and above and below, you will have out of focus elements. This for me is one of the characteristics which I love about this lens. It's a characteristic which is especially pleasing for portraits, as it draws the viewer's eye into the subject. So this is the box which the lens came in. It came in a small bubble wrap envelope as well. And as you can see, it's a very cheap cardboard box. On the top of the box we have a sticker with the brand Neewer, but on the lens itself it has no mention of this brand, so I imagine that Neewer is a reseller of the Fujian lenses. As you can see, it says CCTV lens. This lens was manufactured to be attached to old closed-circuit TV security cameras. It is a 35mm, so all the way around the box you can see it says CCTV lens, and that is all there is to the box itself. So let's open up the box and see what's inside. Well, the first thing we come across is this all-metal C-mount to NEX, as you can see here, C-mount to NEX, which is an all-metal adapter where you just screw the lens into here and then attach this to your camera. You can order this lens with other mount adapters. I chose the C-mount to NEX, the Sony E-mount adapter, because I want to couple this with my Sony ZV E10 APS-C mirrorless camera. There are also two small metal extension tubes which screw onto the lens itself to make it macro capable. In fact, these two rings can be joined together to change the focal length to assist you with your close-up macro photography. Inside this small piece of bubble wrap you will find the lens itself, which is incredibly tiny. Just look at that. Even when attached to my Sony ZV E10, it still looks relatively tiny. The lens itself is all metal and glass. The only plastic parts are the front lens cap and the rear lens cap. The front one just pulls off and the rear one has a small screw thread. The lens has a front focus dial which is very smooth and well dampened. It has markings on the dial which go from 0.3 up to 4 and then on to infinity. I assume that these markings are in meters. The focus throw on this lens is about 50% of the complete turn of the dial, which is quite short and therefore will increase your skill at precise focusing. The more you practice, the better you will get at focusing. The aperture ring is stepless and very smooth and dampened and has markings on it from 1.7 up to 16. I assure these are f-stops, so f1.7 to f16. Being stepless means that you can adjust your aperture on the fly when shooting video, for example. I'm pretty sure that the f1.7 is correct, as the luminosity in the photos it produces is quite impressive, but I would not trust the other f-stop markings. If we look into the lens now, you can see this is supposedly f16. It looks very close down to me, and as I adjust, you can see that it opens up more and more until this is at f1.7. So you can see that it is a very luminous lens. This tiny lens, including the camera mount, the extension tube macro adapters, and the lens caps, weigh in at an unbelievable 137 grams, which is just 4.83 ounces. And the dimensions of the lens are 4 by 5.5 centimeters, which is a tiny 1.58 by 2.17 inches. You can literally put it in your pocket or hold it in your closed hand. This lens is fully manual and does not have any electronic connectors, therefore does not communicate with your camera. Some of the metadata in your video and photo files will be missing for this reason. Now this lens is an absolute no-brainer. A 35mm F1.7 lens which is so tiny and which costs less than $18 US. It sounds too good to be true, but it isn't. I must say that it was unbelievable fun using this lens. I realized that I had lost my passion for going out and taking photos and video, and I'm sure that a good part of the fault lies with the gear which I have that basically does all the work for me and means that all I have to do is compose the shot and press the shutter release button. And to be honest, that is not enough to motivate me. I felt really excited about going out with my ZV E10 and this small Fujian 35mm F1.7 lens and the two tiny macro tube adapters. Being 100% manual meant that every image which I took was created following my own criteria. If the image came out well or badly, it was my fault. I couldn't blame it on the camera. It really did bring back some of that lost passion for photography. Now this lens has some peculiarities which can make you love it or hate it. Believe me, as I'm sure you've realized, I absolutely love it. And what is there not to love about this lens? Its size, its price, its weight. Of course, this lens has negative points as well. But that's only normal. It was made for old CCTV cameras, not for modern mirrorless cameras. If you're looking for a perfect lens to do a professional job, which has perfect autofocus and gives tack-sharp images, you can buy the Sony G-Master 35mm F1.4 new for just $1,700. That's 100 times more than the price of this lens. Obviously, there will be a big difference between the images which this lens produces and the images which the G-Master produces. If what you want is to have fun with your photo and video shoots and to be creative within the parameters which the lens offers, then you can't go wrong by trying out this little tiny lens. So, what are the pros and cons of the Fujian 35mm F1.7 CCTV lens? Well, let's look at the pros first. First and foremost, I would say the price. Come on, $18 US for a lens like this. Unbelievable. The next pro I would say must be its small form factor. This is so tiny, so portable, and so flexible. Its luminosity also is an enormous pro. This lens has an f1.7 aperture, which is extremely luminous. And because it's so luminous, it gives a beautiful, dreamy-like, swirly bokeh. Other pros are these lovely, smooth, dampened focus dials and aperture dials. And again, remember that this aperture dial is stepless. The build quality is amazing. It's solid metal and the lenses are glass. Another great thing about this lens is that when you attach it to your camera, you are not intrusive, you are not obvious, you do not stand out, which is a great benefit if you're doing street photography, for example. Another pro, of course, is the fact that it is manual focus, and therefore you get enormous practice on how to use a manual focus lens. As you'll see shortly in my examples, this lens delivers retro, vintage style images, which again for me is another pro. Looking at this list of pros, you can see why I love this lens so much. Okay, now let's look at the cons, because there are a few, which I've also already mentioned. And those cons are all related to image quality. If the lens is wide open, you may find that you have vignetting. Also, the lens produces chromatic aberrations and refraction. And this lens, as I said before, has consistent inconsistencies. Where you focus in the composition will be in focus, but everything above and below and to the left and to the right will have a slight out of focus look, even on the same focal plane. Now, most of the cons mentioned here are the things which I like most about this lens, but I feel that it's only fair to explain what the cons could be if that's not what you're looking for. If you're looking for something which gives very high quality images, tack sharp focus continuously across the focal plane, this is not the lens for you. If you're looking to have fun and enjoy your photo and video sessions and you want to have creativity, then this lens is absolutely perfect for that. And of course, it takes the fear away of using manual focus. Bear in mind that most modern mirrorless cameras today have a function called focus peaking. Now, you may feel that using focus peaking in manual focus is cheating a little bit. And you may be right, but to help you get past that fear factor, then maybe use your focus peaking initially until you learn the focus throw of the lens, and then you feel more confident with it. Just remember that this lens was not made for modern mirrorless cameras, and therefore you cannot expect to have the characteristics of a lens which costs 100 times the price of this one. This is precisely its attraction. If you have $18 US to spare, then I highly recommend you getting one of these lenses and trying it out. What have you got to lose? Believe me, you won't regret it. So let's take a look at this lens and see what it has to offer.
The short bursts of video, which were not stabilized as you can see, were taken fully open at f1.7 and shot in 4K at 24 frames per second. You can see in the close-ups how the focus is different on the left and right and at the top and bottom on the same focal plane. The close-ups were taken using the two mini macro extension tubes using different shutter speeds and ISO values. The photos here were taken in manual mode using the Fujian 35mm fully open at f1.7. In these Christmas light shots, you can see the perfectly circular lights in the central part of the image. These circular lights become more elongated at the sides and at the top and bottom. The beautiful dreamy bokeh which this lens produces is truly amazing, especially for the price. All of these images are straight out of camera with no balancing or color grading whatsoever, so that you can evaluate the image quality yourself. And the images which the lens produces are usable and interesting to say the least.
Well, I hope you found this video interesting and informative. If you did, please click on the like button, subscribe to my channel, and ring that notification bell to be notified when a new video drops on my channel. Also, if you know somebody who has an APS-C mirrorless camera, then please share this video with them so that they too can learn about this amazing little lens. So until the next time, this is Andy at Photech Video signing off. Take care and be safe.